Okay, today's Break the Cage Now broadcast is live, and here we are. I'm in Alberta today, excited to start the new year with this three-part series. The three-part series that we're going to launch starting today in our Break the Cage Now series is about New Year's, about goals. We're celebrating, actually, the new year, the new opportunity. You know, it's interesting. The winter solstice, of course, happened in the middle of toward the end of December. And that's the time that's the shortest day of the year. And that was the time anciently, you know, death and all that sort of stuff, middle of winter and so forth was considered, the sun was gone for most of the day and so forth. And the beginning of the new growth and expansion period happened then when the days began getting longer. And that's one of the significant things about that. New Year's falls just, of course, a few days after that. And we take the opportunity, many of us, to think about the year. Now, sometimes we call them New Year's resolutions, and sometimes those are jokes, and we don't really keep them and so forth. But I'm going to devote the next series of 3 hangouts specifically to celebrating the opportunity to create your life again for 2015. 2015 is going to be a great year. The only question is, are you going to be on board the great train? Are you going to be on board the boring train, the do-nothing train? Are you going to live 2014 over again? Now, if 2014 was an awesome year for you, then that's great. You might want to live 2014. A repeat of that kind of performance in 2015. Obviously, we can only live in the present moment. And so if our goal is to have as good a year, or perhaps better slightly than 2014, that can be a good goal. On the other hand, the notion of living the same year twice, for most of us, is not usually pleasant. We think, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have another repeat of that. Because often, you know, life happens and things happen, and we're not glad about how we responded to certain things, or we didn't take advantage of certain opportunities. Now, dwelling in the past on past failures is in itself a failure. So if your disposition is to spend a lot of time dwelling on past failures, the first thing to know about 2015 is it's blank. Today is the, 10th of January. We're barely 1/3 of the way through the first 12th of the year. So like 1/36th, less than 3% of the year. So don't take any guff from yourself about, you know, you've wasted any time. It's fresh. Any of you that ski or snowboard, you know, this is a virgin slope. You're right there ready to take off. I'm going to adjust the camera slightly. To take off on virgin territory running down this spectacularly new and open hill. Now, my first event here in 2015 was a bit of a shock. Okay, I went to the doctor to get a lump looked at right there on the side of my nose. It's about the size of a lima bean, and she told me it was cancer. She's not positive, but that was her first immediate diagnosis, was that it probably was cancerous. And she didn't beat around the bush or anything. She just told me that. And so that was, okay, good morning, America. And I said, all right, we're going to deal with this, okay. And it could have been something that would have been a shock. It could have been something that made me contract for even a moment. I chose not to do that. In fact, it was funny. She was going to chop it off and send it in for a biopsy. So she said, just a minute, I'm going to just cut the whole thing off. And, you know, just notionally that was kind of scary, but anyway, I'm going to cut the whole thing off and send it in for a biopsy. And if it comes back in 3 weeks, what I think it is, and we'll have to do a further surgery. And I said, okay, fine. And so she left me for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes while she went and did some other stuff. A busy practice, and here in Alberta, the doctors are quite busy, as they are everywhere. So she may have seen someone quickly while I sat there. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to take my shirt off or do anything. She just put some tissue around my face and stuck a needle in there and apologized for the needle prick, although that actually wasn't what I was worried about. It was the whack that was going to follow, right? But anyway, and then chopped it off. Anyway, during that 15 minutes, I just sat there and waited and actually stopped thinking about it, started thinking about what else I needed to do, and thought about it a little bit. thought about, but I'll tell you what the feelings were I had in a minute. The interesting thing was she came back into the room and she looked at me and she said, "Well, you're calm." And I said, "What you see is what you get, lady." I said, "This is what I am." And I said, "I would have been about the same if you told me it was melanoma, which is the bad kind of skin cancer, because I just don't get excited about stuff. It is what it is, and my ability to adapt really, really, really fast is a hallmark of one of the things about who I am. And getting all excited about that sort of thing just isn't in my nature." So I just sat there. I said, "Yeah, pretty much. Let's just do whatever it is." I said, "If you told me it was the bad stuff, I'd have said the same thing. Okay, chop it off and tell me what we do next," because I just don't get too nervous about that stuff. Anyway, so that was interesting. Now, what I actually spent my time thinking about is what we're going to talk about this morning, which is how to set goals that matter. When you come face to face with notional mortality, what I have and what she said I probably have likely isn't, harsh. It's I can't remember the words. There's melanoma and not melanoma, and the not melanoma has a couple of other things, squamous and basal cell and a couple of things. Anyway, I'm not going to do technical dribble. I had to have her say 3 or 4 times so I knew what squishy was. I called it Squamish, which is a town somewhere, and she laughed, and of course. Anyway, so I just thought, well, if it's going to require some procedures and some interruption, then it will, and it's going to do whatever it does. But the one feeling that I want to communicate to you is a feeling that has to do with setting objectives that matter, okay? The one feeling I did have is I thought, I need to make sure, this is a reason, little wake-up call, like I'm not afraid of anything drastic. And, possible, there are stories, but I just don't go there. But I thought the one thing I really want to make sure is I do the most important things first. So what I noticed about my 2 or 3 days since then is that my goals haven't changed. My desire has not changed. One small tweak took place, and that was, well, I want to make sure that of the list of things I already had to do, I want to make sure these 2 or 3, I want to make sure those get done. I actually felt really good about that because it meant that I'm already doing the things that I want to do. I'm doing the things that are important to me. And while the prognosis is not difficult and I'm not afraid of anything like that, and even if it were, I don't think I'd do it differently. It does make you think about aging and your body breaking and stuff like that. And those of you that have been following me know that this comes right on the heels of my November beginning to write and my February release of the book Tightrope of Depression, which is a story, my life story about 30-year battle with depression. And how I've brought that to a place of comfort and how I help many people do that. So it is interesting that all of these things sort of happen one right after the other, and that sometimes happens. I have an explanation for that, and this will also fit right into setting goals that matter. And that is this. I want you to think about gravity for a minute. Gravity, and we've talked a little bit about this before, gravity is the stuff we depend on to make our lives predictable. When we walk, if we didn't have gravity, we wouldn't be able to walk. If the gravity shifted from one moment to the next, doubled or cut in half, every step would be unpredictable. It would be suddenly difficult to take a step, or suddenly one step would cause us to spring forward. And if you're a billion degrees below zero and there's ice all over the place, like there is up here in Edmonton right now, you'd fall down at every step because you would be unable to gauge the weight and the strength of each step if gravity shifted. So we depend on gravity to give order and stability to our lives, okay? It's the same thing if you think about working out. So one of your goals this year might be to get in better shape. It might be to work out more regularly or adopt a reasonable exercise regime on a regular basis, or to take a walk every day, or to eat more healthily, or do one of 100 things that are related to your well-being. If gravity was not predictable, that sort of regime would be silly because you would have no idea what if I could lift 20-pound barbells today and tomorrow if gravity were different, they would be 5 pounds, or they might be 5,000 pounds and I wouldn't be able to move them. And so, there's a rule in the gym, and that is the truth of the iron. The iron always weighs, 50 pounds. Tomorrow it's still going to be 50 pounds. Well, that's only true if gravity is predictable. That's only true if the universal constant of gravitation doesn't change. And we depend on that for predictability. So let's move to something more important, which is goals and gravity. Gravity in your goals is the same thing. So we call gravity, I'm going to call it P, the letter P, gravity, physical gravity. I'm going to talk for just a second about S, gravity, which is spiritual gravity. Spiritual or energetic gravity is the same. It is an analog of physical gravity. It is the gravity or resistance that we feel when we're going to make a change in one of our habits. When we're going to make a change about how we think and feel, how we perceive the world. We're going to move through a paradigm shift. We're going to move to a different worldview, which we can choose to do. What we can't choose is the gravity or resistance between where we are and where that new paradigm is, any more than we can change the universal constant of gravitation. But our mistake is often in assuming that that resistance is somehow due to our failure. That if we really wanted to make a change, that it would be easy to do. That's like saying if I really want to have muscles, all of the work on push-ups between now and muscle day would be easy to do. It's not. There is an energetic resistance, spiritual or energetic gravity, that accompanies and resists any effort at making changes. Neural pathways due to neuroplasticity in our mind can be built, but they only come with repeated exercise and the overcoming the resistance that comes from having a normal neural pathway. So that's the preface today for setting goals that matter. Okay? So at the beginning of the year, here you are, and you say, I want a different outcome in 2015. That's the first step. That is a necessary thing. I want a different outcome. Living in the past, oh, I'm terribly miserable about 2014 or December or anything, or that relationship, you know, went south, or whatever it is, or that business deal blew up, or I lost money, or you know, any of that stuff. Spending a lot of time dwelling on that is a waste of time. Now, we feel sorry about certain things, and feeling miserable that something went south is normal. But if you spend very long there, that's a waste of time, because no amount of misery expended in that direction will change what happened. That's an obvious statement, but I cannot miss saying it, because, hello, you spend 1 billion years there, and you know it. So ruminating about one of my favorites is I made some career decisions 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I thought, you know, they were great decisions, and I think they are. But I also, once in a while, stop and wonder, I wonder what would have happened if I had taken this job instead of that job, or if I had turned this one down, or something like that. And then I spend a few minutes trying to imagine or invent a path of life through that, right? Interesting fantasy, but of course I can't do any of that, and it accomplishes nothing. So you don't need to spend very long. And the problem is we do. So eliminate that. Number one, eliminate spending more than just a few minutes on imagining some alternative realities stemming from some different choice in the past. What you can do is, the past is good for two things, okay? And that is critical for setting today's goals. The past is good for, number one, determining where we start today. So I can only start today, this morning, right now, where I ended yesterday. I went to bed in Edmonton. I cannot wake up in Phoenix. I went to bed with a certain amount of money in my bank account, or with a certain business model, and unless I have recurring income, which sometimes happens, then I wake up with a little more. But that is a consequence of some things that I've set in place. So yes, I make money while I sleep. Okay, yippee. But the thing is, that's a consequence, a natural consequence of things that I've set in place. So I can't wake up or start today any different than where I ended yesterday. That's the first principle that the past will teach you, and the second, or does for you. And the second thing is, there are some lessons we can learn from the past. What worked and what didn't work. Okay? I can choose to take advantage of that information, that data, that feedback, however joyful or painful it might be, and factor that into my decision about what to do today. Okay? That's it. After that, the past is useless. You are where you are. You learn what you choose to learn from that. And beyond that, you need to focus on today. What am I going to do today, either to repeat an outcome that I enjoyed or to avoid an outcome that I didn't enjoy? For me, I'm going to wear sunblock more than I do. I have a fair complexion. My wife's been after me for years. She, interestingly enough, 15 years ago had skin cancer and has been a Nazi about skin protection. I, on the other hand, have completely ignored that and told her she was crazy until today. So after they do whatever they're going to do to my face and fix it, then I'm going to be probably not a Nazi, but a half Nazi in that regard anyway. So that's simply a consequence of where I am today and a choice that I'm making about the future. So number one, start in a good place to set goals. Recognize that you can't change the past. Admit truthfully and really where you are, reality. One of the things that are most difficult for people that I coach is truly admitting where they are financially. They always talk in the future. Next month, 6 months from now, I'm going to start this business. It's going to make me a lot of money. I'm going to be okay. That I hear an infinite number of times, and I immediately stop you and I say, where are you today? Not to make anybody feel bad, but you have to start there. Okay? I have people that I coach that are trying to sell products, and they're trying to sell products from a place they are not. They're trying to sell products as if they have this and that done, and they don't. And that means energetically, when you try to help someone understand that what you have might be good for them, you can't do it convincingly because you're not standing on firm ground, you're standing on sand. So let's talk about how to set goals that matter in more detail. So number one, know where you are. Truthfully, honestly, start where you are and set goals based on that stance. Set goals based on where you start from. It's just like running a race. I'm going to run 5 miles, and if I project a finishing time as if I were at mile 3, I'm going to continually be disappointed because I can't ignore the fact that I've got to run those first 2 miles. And if I set a time at 6 minutes a mile from 3 to 5, I say I'm going to run it in 18. Well, wait a minute. That means I've got to run them in 3.5. Better than world record? Not likely. Okay? So that's a silly example, but you do it all the time, and if you're honest with yourself, you know that. So stop. All right, so here's one example of that. One of the things I've started doing in October, and I'm doing it now I've got them scheduled for this year. I started in October to do something called, just a minute, check my time here, a 2-day book challenge. 2 days, meaning 1, 2. That's writing a book in 2 days. 1, 2. So I started that because I wanted to see if I could do it. And I did. And then I started a public challenge where I started inviting people in to participate in a highly intense 2 12-hour day period where they write a book. It's been very successful. I've had very good reaction to it. Lots of people have expressed interest. A number of people have joined. So I did one at the end of October, November, and December, and I have one scheduled in January. So that may be something that you have said for a long time you ought to do for your business, for your marketing, or just because you know that it's probably a good idea because you know something or have an experience that should be shared. If you want to participate in that and accomplish that goal, our next 2-day book challenge is January 19th and 20th. That's Monday and Tuesday, a week from this coming Monday and Tuesday. So starting, I guess, it's at 9 days from today. If you want to do that, it's the most incredible process. You need to get signed up right away, and that can be done at www.speedtoprofitmarketing.com/book challenge. Go there, sign up, and I'd love to help you write your book in 2 days. Maybe that's not an objective of yours and you don't care, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. All right, so setting goals that matter starts, 1, where you are. Number 2, looking deep inside of you and asking some questions and writing down the answers. One of the things we fail to do is actually write down answers, okay? We don't write them down, and so we think we're going to remember, and we don't. I've had countless times when I wake up with a great idea, and I don't write them down, and it's gone, and I can't remember, and I'm mad, and I'm frustrated, and I walk around, what did I think, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so ask yourself some questions, write down the answers. Number one, what would you like to wake up to, actually and factually, on January 1st, 2016? Write it down. I want to wake up in the same town. Yeah, I want to wake up in the same town I live in. I want to wake up in the same house. I like where I live. That's great. I want to wake up with an income of $10,000 a month more than I have today. I want to wake up with a better relationship today, and that will be evidenced by the fact that we don't argue, or that we kiss more with our spouses, or that we go on dates more once a week. Joy's waving at me for the kissing part, right? Anyway, so, but just factually list those things, because until you write down what they feel like and look like and involve all the senses, okay, this is really important. Let me explain something to you, why it's so important to get goals and pictures that involve all the senses. When we describe something as a sensual feast, it means that it's very involving. It involves many senses. So let's think about why, when we teach, we know that people only remember 7% of what they hear, and 50% of what they hear and see, and 75% of what they hear, see, and write down. And we've seen those statistics, and I'm sure those numbers are wrong, but they're huge like that. Why do you think that's true? Well, it's easy. It involves more senses. So the more senses you involve in an experience, the more powerful it becomes. So things that involve taste and smell and eyes. Food, for example, is very sensual. You can see it, it looks good, you taste it, you smell it, you might even hear yourself chewing it, it's very, and you touch it and it's pleasant. So food and eating can be a very sensual experience. Physical things like making love are very sensual. They involve all the senses. There's a reason that those are memorable and powerful. Okay, so creating objectives that are just as sensual, meaning encompassing of the senses, is important. So don't avoid that. In fact, intentionally do it. Start where you are. Create goals that are, number one, specific, two, very detailed, and three, involve all the senses. So specific, detailed, sensual. Specific goals, detailed goals, and involve as many senses as you can. If it's money, what will I feel like if I have this much money? What will I be wearing? How will I be able to, internally sort of do the dance of victory that I made, whatever it is that I'm trying to make? How will I be able to provide a legacy for kids or grandkids or myself, if that's something? Maybe I can then take a trip I've been just wanting to take, that kind of thing. Okay, so start where you are, create very specific, detailed, and sensually full goals. And then number three, set a deadline. They all don't have to be January 1st, 2016. You might have a goal for the month. And in fact, if you do set goals, and this is a sort of a bullet point under the deadline, if you set goals that are annual, like in January 1st, 2016, I'm going to weigh 80 pounds less than I do today. I don't have that goal, but I did once in my life. Okay, then I need some milestones, man, because I'm not going to just say I'm going to weigh 80 pounds less than I do today, and it's just going to happen. Now I've got to say, well, by June, I better be 40, and by April, I better be 20, and by February, I better be 10, because the first 10 or 20 are easy to lose, right? So I better be 10 the first month, and then 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, about 5 or 6 of those, and then maybe 8, 8, 6, 6, 5 as I sort of taper into the ideal weight, or something like that. Milestones, critical, specific, date-stamped milestones are essential. So let's review the 3 key pieces. Start where you are. That requires honesty, truth, and dumping the ego. No judgment, just critical honesty. Number 2, set goals that are specific. They have all the details, and they involve as many senses as possible, very sensual. Number 3, they have to be date-stamped and have critical milestones on the way. If you set goals that way, they will matter to you because you have weekly activities to pursue to get there, because you got this monthly day staring you, monthly milestone staring you in the face. Okay? And the other thing is, connect them, stay connected with them. But we're going to talk in the next two about the two more, how to get things you want in 2015. So today is how to set goals that matter. We're not doing next week because I'll be on a plane on Saturday the 10th all day. Number 3 number 2 will be on the 24th, and that's going to be how to stay connected to those objectives during the period. And then Saturday the 31st, I think, is that right? Yeah. Today's 10, 17, yeah, 24, 31. So 24 will be number 2, how to stay connected. And number 3 will be how to make them happen. How to make them happen. Okay? So how to stay connected and how to make them real. How to set goals that matter is today. How to stay connected is the 24th. How to make them real. I want to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are nearly 400 videos there, some having to do with Break the Cage, some having to do with business growth. There are several communities you can join. I want to invite you to check out www.speedtoprofitmarketing.com/group coaching if you want to be part of my group that accomplishes goals. I have a powerful group fueled by some great people in that group that are going to accomplish great things in 2015. I'm already stuck on last year, 2015. And I would invite you to check that out. Check out the book challenge if it's something you want. Both of those URLs will be in the chat here in just a moment. All right, we're coming to close to the end of the hour. I usually pause in the middle for comments. I see we've got Rick, who's one of my group coaching members, and we've got Joy, who's my beautiful companion and wife. Do you guys have any comments or things that you want to throw into the mix today?
Kellen, I see that what's exciting to me, of course, the topic and the way you talk about goals that matter. But what's even more exciting is the clarity that you have, that you can look at the camera for 20-something minutes and explain this almost without taking a breath, because it's so in you, and you've accomplished these things in your life, and it's an example for me of how things work when it's actually done. So thank you for that passion that you bring to it. It's not mechanical the way you explain it.
You're welcome. No, it's funny because somebody asked me once how on earth I'm able to do that. I do it for sometimes when in the electricity stuff. I would do it all day. I would run a stakeholder meeting all day long, and I would do it without notes and without slides and without anything, and stay on track and get the agenda done. And I do it also in the realm of personal development and personal achievement. And I hadn't ever actually thought about it, and I described it in two sentences, two-word sentences. One is insane competence and absolute confidence. And whether it's good or bad, and some people might say arrogant, it's true. I have insane competence in this area developed over a lifetime, and absolute confidence. I know without any hesitation or breath that what I say works, and that it will work for people that watch and that I coach. So insane competence and absolute confidence are my hallmarks. And it's not that hard to achieve if a person chooses to get rid of their, barriers and blocks, and it steps into their own zone of genius, which everyone has.
And that in itself is a goal that matters. Being able to do that.
Totally agree. Thank you. That's a great observation. It is a goal that matters because you have a zone of genius, and when you operate in there, nothing gets in the way because you know and you feel and you act, and it's not arrogance, it's not pushiness, it simply is, and you inspire that kind of thing. And I've been blessed with talents that have given me the ability to be a leader and to be in leadership most of my career and my areas outside of my work, volunteer work and community and church work and stuff like that. So it's a blessing and a gift that I have that I try really hard to use for the good of others as well. So thank you for attending this morning and for your comment, Rick. Joy, do you have anything you want to add? Please do.
Well, I just wanted to say briefly about goals. Often we'll make goals such as, well, I want to make more money this year, or I want to lose weight this year. But when I was a project manager in the energy industry, I mean, part of goal setting or part of making a business plan was just not done in a couple of hours in an afternoon sitting in Starbucks. It was long, hard work. Every week we had meetings to discuss. I had meetings with the finance people and lawyers and economists and other things to put together a business plan and goals. So, we can do a smaller scale version of that for ourselves. So I want to maybe make, an extra, I don't know, $8,000 a month. Well, how am I going to actually do that? Is that just sort of a number I pull out of the air, or based on my own circumstances and where I need to be, what I need to accomplish, is that a real number? And then break down the steps into the 30, 60, 90, and then going out 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. A friend of ours, Daryl Eves, does that. He has his goals literally in his car on his visor that he flips his visor down every day and says, okay, yeah, those are the things that I have to do today to meet my goal. I think often, I don't know if we're that diligent in doing that. I'm not. I'll speak for myself. I'm not. But I'm certainly learning how to do that. So, is what I'm doing today getting me closer to my goal? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question. And if it's not, why am I doing it? So that type of the vigilance and almost like a rabid, sense to get these things done in a certain order and fashion is just, really is crucial to getting the goal that created or that accomplished by December 31st of next year. So you can wake up on 2016 and you've set out what you've achieved to do, or you've achieved what you've set out to do. It's early in the morning still.
So let me just raise two final points that Joy raised that I want to just emphasize. One is, she said, rabid dedication. Sometimes that feels to people like, oh, I'm a slave to these things. Well, you know what? Don't set them then. I mean, if they're not things you really want, you get to choose what they are. So the notion that you're rabidly dedicated to them is not slavery. It is not robbing you of your ability to live life to the fullest, because presumably you set things that you wanted. If you're setting goals based on someone else's expectation, I need to make a certain amount of money because so-and-so said so, or because somebody else expects it, yeah, you won't stay dedicated to those. Those will feel like chains and slaves, and you won't be breaking the cage. If you want to break the cage and enjoy your life while you're doing it, then you have to set goals that you really want, that matter to you. If you set goals that matter to you, it's not slavery at all to stay that dedicated. It's joyful dedication. Because why? Because it's stuff you want anyway. All right. And the other thing is, she said about looking at your daily activities. I used the metaphor of a pirate, those old pirate spy glasses, right? And they looked out over one eye and they peeked out at the ship, way out there in the horizon, so they could see the bad guy or the good guy or whatever before they aimed their cannons. So the way I describe that is, if you cannot see your 90-day goals through the lens of your daily activities, you're doing the wrong stuff. If you cannot see your 90-day goal through the lens of your daily activity, you're doing the wrong stuff. I don't know where you're going, but it ain't out there at that pirate ship. So whatever it is, think of that. All right, we're a little bit over time. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I know that we've got a bunch watching on YouTube because I had a whole bunch of people respond to me and asking me for links and shares and so forth today. So thank you all for coming. We'll end the broadcast now and go get 2015. Don't let this broadcast be wasted. Get off your butt. Get your papers out. Set goals that you want, that you're not slave to. Give me some 30, 60, 90, 6-month, 9-month hallmarks, and maybe some of them will be done in 90 days. That's great. However they work, but follow the principles. Start where you are. Don't start somewhere else. Be honest. Set goals that are specific, have details, and involve all of your senses. And then put some deadlines on them and milestones. Okay? And then you'll be able to accomplish this. And then we'll talk next week, 2 weeks actually, 2 weeks from today, about how to stay connected to those. How to stay connected. And Joy gave us a little preview talking about a friend of ours, having him on his face every day, down to daily and weekly, and that's some of the tactics to do that. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, break the cage now.